Welcome to the introduction to online academic profiles session sponsored by Penn Libraries and also the Graduate Center. My name is Manuel Cruz Gutierrez. I work at the Biomedical Library. This is work that two of my collaborators, Elizabeth Jenkins and Kathleen Fox, created some of the content, and also Rebecca Storr, who is present here. She also gave me some advice on putting it together, particularly in the part of disciplinary profiles, for which I was less familiar with. Okay. Okay, so today the academic online profiles that I'll be discussing include ORCiD, which is a researcher identifier platform, and becoming more and more important in the scholarship landscape. I'll talk about the profiles associated with the discovery databases Scopus, Web of Science, which has a profile researcher ID that is linked to the PubLaunch platform, and I'll discuss how is that how those work together. The profile associated with Google Scholar and with a new database called Dimensions. I will discuss two multidisciplinary academic networks, namely Academia.edu, ResearchGate, and Mendeley, and some discipline-specific networks, Humanities Commons, Media Commons, PhilPapers, and SSRN. The goals for this session include the following. I would like to give you an overview of the different systems and some pros and cons each one of them may have for you, how these systems share or not information between each other with other platforms, and discuss some of the privacy issues associated with that. How these systems may make you more visible on the web, which is probably one of the reasons that you might have come to this workshop in the first place. And I'll be giving you an idea of the maintenance work that it requires to have these profiles up to date. And at times I will be pretty specific, but I'll give you the slides after the presentation, so you'll be able to refer back to them if you actually want to put in place some of the instructions that I'll be going over in the presentation. I hope too that to make you able to identify online communities that you might want to join, and at the same time have a profile in them. And at the end, I would like you to leave thinking what next steps you want to take into maintaining these profiles if you're interested in doing so. All right, so with this in mind, we'll start by talking about the researcher identifier ORCiD. ORCiD has this mission. I'll give you 2 seconds to read it. It's a very broad mission, but this is an identifier that is taking more and more hold, particularly because funders are being behind it, and it's a way to disambiguate your name when you have somebody that has the same name as you, and it's difficult to tell apart which work belongs to who. So ORCiD is an identifier, and it's a unique 16-digit identifier. You have your profile made up of these 2 parts. And also it's a registry of trusted connections. So what this means is that once you create your ID, and it has to be you that creates it, nobody can create it for you, you need to create it yourself. Then you link the ID to different databases that feed information to ORCiD, and also ORCiD can feed information to other databases. And then you will develop your record, namely you curate data entries, you fill in, fields, so you have a richer profile. As an example, we have in here this diagram where your ID is linked to the funds that you might have been awarded, your publications, your affiliations, namely your employment history or your or where do you study, where you got your degrees. This is what an ORCiD record looks like. It includes a biography, employment history, educational history, awards that you, some of the funding you might have had throughout your career, all the published works, not necessarily only articles, but also books, data sets, any kind of poster presentations, meetings that you have attended, and more other and there exist other fields in it. You can add works to your record in many different ways. There is the search and link, which is the preferred method. In this way, you link your profile with a database that has information, say, in the case of Crossref, it has information on publications such as articles or book chapters. Crossref is the body that maintains digital object identifiers, DOIs, which now virtually all articles on the internet have them. And DataSite, which is a body that means DOIs for datasets. So since they have a registry of all those objects, you can connect to them. And if you say publish an article and the journal accepts your ORCiD, you can give them your ORCiD. The ORCiD becomes part of the record of the article. And then if you have a link to Crossref or DataSite, as soon as there is a new work belonging to you and you made the connection to Crossref and DataSite from your profile, you will automatically, the record will automatically be populated on your ORCiD. There are other databases for which you can connect, but the population of your record will not be automated. For example, Scopus, which we will discuss in detail later, has that feature in that if a new article of yours appears in Scopus, it will not automatically appear on ORCiD. You will need to go there periodically and kind of like refresh, if you wish, that connection, and then the article will appear. So in that respect, Crossref and DataSite are more nicer because you don't need to be doing this refreshing of your profile. So there are other methods to add to your works. That includes the archive ID. If you don't know what archive is, don't worry about it. DOI is a digital object identifier that we just said. PubMed ID for those that publish in the health sciences. BibTeX is a format used in the natural sciences and in math. Or you can add the record manually, which is, much more work and also pronto errors. So probably the least convenient one. Okay. One of the main characteristics about an ORCiD record is that you have full control upon what information you put out there for people to see. For each of the objects that are in your profile, you can control who sees it. You can make it completely public so anybody on the internet can go and see it. You can have it so only trusted parties can see the information, either read and or write. Like, for example, some of these databases that can write records on you, you usually allow them to see your record, and you can control that. Really, is very granular for each individual object. And then there is the only me. So only you or a delegate that you can set in ORCiD can see the particular object in your record, or particular field if you want to see it that way. Okay, so this is an overview of the ORCiD registry. The benefits is that it's free. It's very easy to register. You can open a profile in a minute and a half. You have complete control of who sees what and when. And it integrates easily with other platforms, including ScienceCivic. That makes it very easy for you to create bio sketches if you're going to be submitting grant applications to either NIH, NSF, or IES. And it's also compliant with the international standard. However, ORCiD is not really a social media platform. It's not really a profile system in that it lacks some of the functionality that we will see later on for the rest of the profile systems. So it's more of a, again, a research identifier. And it does not have metrics about what attention you are getting for each of your works. For that, you need to go to other platforms. Next, I'll be talking about discovery databases. This includes the first one that I will be talking about are the profiles in Scopus. The online profiles there I call author IDs. And the author IDs are automatically generated for you. If you have a paper in Scopus that is indexed in Scopus, it will generate an author ID for a specific name, and it will see if there are other articles already associated with that name. And it creates a page for you automatically. For example, and you can do an author search to find your own. In this case, I'm doing the example of Eugene Garfield, the late pioneer of impact metrics. And in here, when I look for Eugene Garfield, there are several profiles because he created different profiles. These are automatically generated. Sometimes it doesn't group the publications in a single profile. It may instead create several because of limitations of the algorithm. But then if that is a problem, if that is a problem with your profile, you can request to merge the authors that the algorithm thought were distinct. But it is mediated through the company, so you need to request that. Now, this is an author. This is a profile. In here, it has the name you're known, other name formats that might be in your publications, which subject areas the corresponding publications belong to. And it gives you some metrics. So that's something nice about this profile. You can see the H-index, which is a measure of your impact on your productivity, and total citations, a measure of your influence, and even who are your co-authors. So this is a very nice way. I know many of you are just starting, but in here quickly you can see who your co-authors are, and from then even follow the links to see their profiles in turn. And just by the way, it only provides metrics that are contained within the same database, and that will be the same for other profile systems that we will see, such as the associated with Web of Science or Google Scholar. It's only within the tool that it's only for articles indexed in the tool that will give you the metrics. So how do you update your profile? It just happens automatically. It comes a new publication and it goes and looks if there's already a profile for your name. If it identifies correctly, it's just going to put it in there automatically. But if there is an error, like for example, you're missing some publications or a publication was ascribed to you that it does not belong to you, you can complete the author feedback wizard and correct the record. You can also integrate with ORCiD in the sense that ORCiD and the profile, your profile in Scopus can feed into ORCiD. But as I said, this part, what is depicted in here of the authorization, you need to do it every time that you want to have up-to-date publications in ORCiD. So that's right now a limitation of using Scopus as a source of publications for your ORCiD record. Okay, so this is an overview of author ID. As pros, it has citation metrics, however, only for the publications indexed in Scopus. And is more interdisciplinary than ResearchGate, which is another profile system that we will see next that belongs to Web of Science, a competitor of Scopus. It automatically updates your profile, and well, hopefully, and it gets it right, hopefully. and can easily integrate with ORCiD. Some of the cons are that it is dependent upon Scopus, platform dependent, and you have limited auto control because you don't control the algorithm, and anything that you want to correct, it needs to be mediated through the company. Next one is Researcher ID. This is a profile system of Web of Science and Publons. Publons is a platform for you to track how much peer review work do you do. So the way to register to Research ID is that you follow the link depicted in here. And also when I give you the slides, you can follow that link. And you can then build your publication list. You really use it. You do it in the Publons platform, yet you're bringing the data from Web of Science. And this is the different ways that you can build up your publication lists. You can import them from Web of Science, from ORCiD, or you can put individual ones, or you can import, if you have an EndNote file with your publications, say, then you can use option number 4 in here. And Researcher ID also has very good metrics. So you can tell you how many publications you have, how many times you've been cited, how many you get, how many citations per item you may get in general per year, and also what kind of and also it gives you the peer review metrics, namely how many Publons it has many agreements with publishers. So whenever you do some peer review work, you can give them your Researcher ID, and then the journal will credit you through the platform that you did peer review work for them. So that is also very nice about this. And just an overview of this Research ID as a pro. Well, again, there's a focus on metrics in here. It has more robust privacy controls than Author ID, so you are the one that is more in charge of the Research ID profile, as opposed to just being automatically generated for you as it was in Scopus. You can download your academic record, which then you can use for a CV or another application. Perhaps you are want to get funding, or find a new job. It easily integrates with ORCiD through Publons, and you can easily track peer review and get credit for it. Some of the cons is, again, it depends upon Web of Science, and it's mainly focused on the natural and on the natural sciences. All right. Next one is one that I'm sure most people are familiar with, Google Scholar. Google Scholar has its own profiles, so they call it citations profile. The way that you get that you can create one is by going to Google Scholar. There is my profile. You can, if you don't have one, you can create an account following those links. And this is what it looks like. So this is an example of John Trojanowski, who is a professor at the Paramount School of Medicine. And in here, you can see that there is again, a heavy focus on what kind of citation counts John's papers are getting. And these numbers are updated automatically. It gives you some metrics in there, even some graphs. And in here, you can also add works to your profile. If Google is going to try to do this automatically for you, but sometimes it might get it wrong. And you might need to, again, do the kind of work that I showed you before with Scopus, that there might be different clusters of your work that are separated from your profile. Well, in here, you can bring them together without needing to have a person, an intermediary, do it. You can do it for yourself in Google Scholar. And yeah, there's automatic updates, so you can So you can make it that when Google thinks that a new work gets published and enters its index, then it can ascribe it to you. Well, now a brief overview. There's an automatic profile update. Again, there's a focus on metrics, easily accessible. I mean, because it's just a regular Google platform that everybody is familiar with. As cons, it does not provide a persistent digital identifier for yourself. At least with Scopus and Web of Science, you can refer to a digital identifier for your profile. And sometimes it's unclear what is included in metrics in terms of what kind of publications make it. Google Scholar can be sometimes a bit obscure about things, just in general, Google. So that reflects too in the Scholar. So if you're interested about those things, I encourage you to follow that link. All right. So these are some of the, it's an overview of what I've discussed so far. What are some of the features of discovery databases? Although, okay, ORCiD is not really a discovery database, but I'm putting it there just so you get an idea of how it compares with the other ones. And hopefully this table will help you make some decisions in case you want to pay attention to one profile over another. One last thing that I want to talk about in the discovery databases is a new entrant in the space that this database occupies. It's called Dimensions. It's from another company called Digital Science, and this is a database that not only indexes publications, just as Scopus, Google Scholar, and Web of Science, Scopus, and Google Scholar, but also indexes research datasets, grants, clinical trials, patent records, and even policy guidelines. There is a free version accessible at that URL, and this is kind of what it looks like. The free version only gives you access to the publications for datasets, grants, patents, clinical trials, and policy documents. You need to have a subscription. And at the moment, Penn Libraries does not have a subscription to Dimensions. But anyways, in here, again, just kind of like the same way as Scopus, it creates automatically a profile for a specific person. And this is the case of Jennifer Kogan, a professor in the Penn School of Medicine, 74 publications with over 2,000 citations. Identifies the fields of research according to the journals she's been publishing, and it identifies some concepts, so kind of like tags for each of the articles, and identifies who her co-authors are. You keep scrolling on the profile, which is from where I got these screenshots. You can also see a list of publications, and for each it tells you how many times they've been cited. All right, the Dimensions actually integrates with ORCiD in a very interesting way, which is you can link to ORCiD to get grants data for grants that go beyond the U.S. government. So it's very easy for you to go and see who has, say, an NIH grant of people you know. But in here, you can leverage the Dimensions wizard, which integrates with ORCiD, in order for you to attract records for yourself. Or actually, if you're interested, you could even just type a different name than yours and see that person's grants, even if they are for a foundation. Say that you want to see, John Smith, to see if he has like American Heart Association Foundation grant, which is kind of that kind of information is sometimes hard to get anywhere else. All right, so with that, that ends my discussion on the discovery platform. And now I will talk about scholarly networking platforms. So for these ones, the emphasis is on the network, how you fit with other scholars than you in the general field of knowledge. The first one I'll talk to you about is ResearchGate. And again, these databases have millions of users. They all create their accounts and they keep their accounts. So ResearchGate is one of them. It's huge emphasis on again, the natural sciences. And you can join for free, but we'll talk about the models in a minute, how they work. Here I pulled the profile for Jennifer Kogan, who we saw previously, her profile in the mentions. And again, she has in here 75 publications. One of the things that ResearchGate has is that you can go and see the papers. Like if you, and that's one of the allure, is that you create your PDF that Jennifer has uploaded. So it's a way for people to check your work and check it right there, even if they might not have access to the article otherwise. It tells you also the metrics of how many times she has gotten citations, and it shows who your co-authors are. And you can integrate ResearchGate, your ResearchGate profile with your ORCiD. And this is depicted in here. This is how it's done. If you go to ResearchGate, you click on your profile image, you click in the information menu. If you scroll to the very bottom, you enter your ORCiD ID, and then in that way, your profiles will be synced in sync. So ResearchGate is free, yet anything that you do in here, they can really package the data and sell it to other providers, and you are basically okay with that by virtue of using the tool. Then we have Academia.edu. Academia.edu is, I think, even bigger. They claim to have 142 million registered users and over 22 million uploaded papers now, and over 68 million visitors per month. This again has the allure that you can go and read the articles in there that otherwise, for example, if you don't have a robust access to reading journals that are behind paywalls, you can create an Academia.edu profile, and then you can read whatever people uploaded there. You can. This is the way. This is how a profile looks. Here I have put Peter DeCherney, who is a professor in the Cinema Studies department at Penn. And what you have in here is that you can include links to either Twitter, LinkedIn, email, whatever you want to include in there, so people can find you in other platforms. Here you can, as I said, upload your papers, upload your books for people to download them themselves. And it is free to subscribe, but if you want to pay a little bit more, then you get this kind of perks that are summarizing here. And again, Academia.edu, because from the virtue that you're using the tool, can share your information with whoever they decide to share it or sell it. So that's a feature of both of ResearchGate and Academia.edu. The other one that we want to talk about is Mendeley. Mendeley, again, has a big penetration in the natural sciences. And in here, there is the aspect of discussing not only your own papers, but also just a paper that you upload to your account. Say, many people use this for, say, journal clubs where, okay, somebody uploads a paper and everybody is like, we're all going to read the paper that somebody uploaded, and we could have an interaction online about it there. This is an example Mendeley profile. And this professor from Penn, on neurology. Again, there is a big emphasis on metrics. All these metrics come from Scopus because this is the same company behind Scopus and Mendeley, who's called Elsevier. It's the same company, so it pulls out data from Scopus, and as you can see in there are two numbers for Ramon, and those two numbers are his profiles that are automatically generated in Scopus. So he hasn't bothered to merge them into one. Anyway, so it also shows you some of your co-authors, and people using the profile people can look you up without needing to create a Mendeley profile themselves. And you can add your professional experience, your education, all of this, you have to do it. It's not gonna come automatically from anywhere. And there is, again, an emphasis on metrics. I will tell you citation. Something interesting is that it also uses another Elsevier product called NewsFlow to find if there are any media mentions of your work, and they will put it there. So that's, and also because Elsevier has a platform for full text delivery called Science Direct that has the content of many journals. It can also track who is viewing your paper. So if somebody goes and reads your paper in Science Direct, and then it will count towards a viewing here. And also tells you how many readers and you are connected in Mendeley. Other readers. So in Mendeley, the users are called readers. All right. So for the three that I just discussed, ResearchGate, Academia.edu, and Mendeley, these are some of the pros and cons. The pros is that all of them, you need to subscribe to them, but they have huge number of users. And it allows you to interact with other users, so it might be of interest for you to find like-minded people with your same interest. And the nice thing is that they are very multidisciplinary. So you can be in a field of study and find somebody else in a very disparate field of study that has your same interest in a particular topic. You have control over your content. I mean, you need to really be hands-on with your profile. You can shape papers, manuscript for feedback, create communities of interest, and all of these platforms make a lot of work to make your papers findable in Google. So that is something that also is attractive about them. And there are some metrics available for them. And as a con is that these are usually closed-off systems, so they don't, whatever data is in there, they usually don't, you cannot push the data to another platform. It's usually is very closed off, like all the data in there just stays there. Yes, you're findable in Google, but that's because they are making they want people to get traffic into the platform, so they make your stuff discoverable in Google and other search engines. But most people use Google, so that's important. All these databases, they are done for monetizing, so they are very interested in what they can get out of your data. And this sharing of papers, sometimes, most of the time, you really are not legally able to share your papers in this platform, so it could be problematic. Perhaps not so much for you, but I mean, it could be. I mean, some of my colleagues can later chime in on this, but it is just not really legal to be sharing most of the articles that are in these platforms. And then finally, like, if you want some of these extra perks, it might cost you some money. All right. So the last part of the presentation deals with disciplinary networking platforms. These are platforms that are very discipline specific. The first one that I want to talk to you is Humanities Commons. If you are interested in doing particularly digital work in the humanities, and you're very interested in open access, this is a place that you really want to check out. You can create your own profile, and there are groups of interest. You can create your own site, access publications from others. And this is an example of a Humanities Commons profile. So you can see in here that identifies you get identified with your university, and you can put connections to your ORCiD, to your LinkedIn, Twitter, and you can write about yourself so people can be able to find you if they are interested in finding new partners for projects, finding people that have the same interest. It also includes a repository, so you can upload publications of yours, whether they're, I think they might be just, they could be even working publications that you're developing. And we have another one called Media Commons. I think here the emphasis is on creation of new media. And this is an example of a profile in there. In here, there is a lot of, you can have different roles. You can be contributing, as in, like, for example, a blog post within the platform, but you can also comment on other people. And then in this way, contribute as a member of this community. You can put in there what are your interests, a bio, and in this way, find people that have similar interests to yours. Then there is PhilPeople, that tries to be the most comprehensive community for philosophers, and they create profiles for every philosopher they can create. So in here, you don't need to create your profile. There might be one for you already because you published something and then they identify, then profile gets created, but you can then claim it. And this is an example of one for Gary Hatfield, who is a professor in philosophy. Again, you can put what your areas of specialization are, link to your homepage, what your publication is, if there are events associated with you, if there's news and updates, and you can follow people to see if, to keep up to date on their work. And again, they try to create a community around that. The last one that I want to mention is SSRN. This is a very important platform for social sciences, and it's a repository of preprints or working papers. It's very important in, say, in economics, but also in other related social sciences disciplines. And it makes it really easy for you to find articles in those disciplines. And this is an example of a profile for Jerry Berman, who is an economist here at Penn. And as you can see, there is some metrics associated with the profile. This comes from Elsevier because Elsevier also owns SSRN. And again, if you are in the social sciences, this is something that it will be important because many people go to SSRN to see who's working on what. This is a follow-up of Jerry's profile, so you can see the emphasis on the metrics, and you may be able also to get to the full text, particularly for the versions that have not been published yet. All right, so with this, I offer some parting thoughts. I would say I would recommend that you maintain at least one profile that you keep up to date. I'll encourage you to consider an online community of practice. And I really encourage you to open an ORCiD account. And every time you publish, If the journal allows it, submit it. Because then all these connections to your work will be done more and more automatically as the time passes. The future is that you'll be identified in the online environment by your ORCiD. And again, it's good to be findable on Google, and that's something that you want to consider in these platforms. How well do search engine optimization so that your works are findable for somebody just browsing on the web or doing searches. So let's just recap. So we wanted to get an overview of different online profile systems today. And we also learned how these systems share information with other platforms, with other vendors regarding privacy, and how this system may make you more visible on the web. And we saw some instructions on how to maintain those profiles or correct them. And we identified some online communities that already existed for specific disciplines. And now, well, now it's time to think whether you want to maintain some of those that already exist out there, or if you want to create new ones. So with that, I'm gonna stop right there, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email me at that email address. I'm always happy to try to answer any questions, and if I don't know the answer, I'll point you in the right direction, or I'll do a little bit of research to get you to either the right person or the right resource. Now, thank you for attending.